Welcome, everybody, and hello to all of you coming in from all over the world. And today we have another wonderful webinar planned for you, Dr. McDougall Live from Santa Rosa, California. I'm Gustavo Tolosa from Dallas, Texas. And I want to thank Dr. McDougall, as usual, for I know he's very busy on Thursdays. He's very busy every day of the week, actually, but thank you for making the time to be here every week with us. How are you doing today, Dr.
I'm doing good. You know, it's the plane ride I enjoy most when I get together with everybody. And it's a lot of fun for me. I appreciate the chance to get together and to talk to people. And,
yes,
you know, it's ongoing live, and I get to kind of express myself, and I'm in my home, so I get to relax, and it's good.
Well, I have to say that I had the best time last weekend in Santa Rosa during the 3-day intensive program. It was great to see you in person.
It was great. We had about 120 people there.
I know, that was wonderful.
And they loved the food, and some people got dragged there kicking and screaming, and you know, they thought they were going to hate this kind of eating, and you know, we're going to be bored during the lecture. And we got so many, just to watch these minds turn around, these eyes open, and you hear it, you start hearing it even after the first night's lecture. Oh, I didn't know that. Why didn't I know that? And of course, our quality of speakers is the best you could ever find. And Jeff,
well, you have a great team. You know, it's wonderful. Plus, the food, like you mentioned, is I made a short video of every day showing the food that people are enjoying.
Do you have it ready to show today?
Well, I'll show it next time because I have to shorten it a little bit.
Well, this 3-day weekend, we only do one a year, and we make it very inexpensive. And so, you know, anybody, you know, almost anybody can come. And there's some direct flights to Santa Rosa. So we do this one intensive weekend a year. Then we do the advanced study weekends, which are really cool. That's where we have speakers who come who don't agree with us. Now, they don't terribly disagree with us, but I have had paleo people there, and I actually invited one of the Atkins team for the next weekend, and he didn't agree to come. So we didn't disagree, he just didn't answer me. So I guess he's not coming.
I guess he's not.
But yeah, those are fun. So we have one of those September, I think, 16 through 18.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna get a pretty good year planned. In fact, it would be a good time to announce it for people, so they can start thinking about it. Our Alaska trip sold out within 48 hours of us announcing it last year. So we have about, I think, 60 people going with us to Alaska on the Limbla cruise line, which is the top of the line, and with National Geographic staff. And it's really the top of the line trip to Alaska. And so when Mary and Heather suggested, I said, nobody's going to pay that kind of money to go on a trip. And like I say, it sold out in 48 hours. So we're trying to figure out what trip we're going to do next. I have to tell you, we are likely not going to go back to Costa Rica, even though we've gone for, probably 25 years. We've taken at least one trip a year to Costa Rica. And the reason is they've gotten very expensive. Like the properties are the same price as Hawaii now. And even though it's exotic and it's nice and we've had a great time there, I think we're done.
Well, I have the perfect suggestion, though.
Oh, what's that?
Argentina.
You think? You know,
I could be the tour guide. I could, you know, it'll be great.
That might be a good idea. Mary and I went to Argentina just together. You know, I rented a car. It was 10 years ago, and you know, I had to go on the Atkins diet.
I know.
I couldn't find anything but a few canned vegetables.
Changed a lot. It really has. And actually, there is a big group of McDougall followers right now.
Are there?
So yeah, we could make it work.
Well, we could probably. I'm sure we could make it work. It was one of the most difficult countries to eat.
Yes.
In. Chile and Argentina. And Argentina, at one time in my study of disease, had the highest rate of colon cancer of all countries in the world.
Right.
And when my dad was down in Brazil at one time, this was about 25 years ago, he worked for Ford Motor Company. He said to me, son, he said, I'm the oldest man in Brazil. And he was only like about 55 years old. He says, I'm the oldest man in Brazil. He says, everybody else dropped dead of heart disease in their 30s and 40s. Every place I go, all they do is serve me platters of meat. So
Yeah.
I think there's some real problems with
especially
eating.
if you eat in restaurants. I think that when you eat at home, at the people's home, it's a little different. But yeah, you're right. Dr. McDougall, did you know that this week is our 1-year anniversary of doing these webinars?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been a year. Can you believe that?
No, I can't. And that's one of the things about, they always tell you when you're young that when you get old, time goes so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like yesterday. I mean, it seems like I just turned around and I took out the trash yesterday.
I know.
It was last week. So yes, that I am appreciating the time's going fast.
Another kind of anniversary is that I want to point out is that this week was your birthday on Tuesday, and I know everybody here wants to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you. It was a great birthday. It was.
How did you spend it?
I spent it with Mary and also with Heather and the boys, and I turned 69 this year, and I feel pretty good. I think I'm doing well. So, I plan on doing it for at least another 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
All these kinds of things.
Okay, tell us if you had any special food.
Oh, I did. I had a chocolate birthday cake. Yeah. There you go. You got it out of me.
Okay.
Yeah, we had it was interesting. On our birthdays, all of our birthdays, it's usually a chocolate cake. And Mary doesn't go through the trouble of making it anymore. She just goes to the bakery and picks up a chocolate cake.
Yeah.
And it's about this big in size. And we've got 10 people eating it. And half the cake is gone. Only half the cake is gone. And on the plate, only half the cake is eaten. And this is all the little kids, the grandkids.
Right.
It's something that they have so seldom, care so little about.
Yes.
That so that happens every birthday. As we do have, a birthday cake. But our dinner was bean burritos.
Oh yeah,
which is our favorite.
Yes, that is one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Dr. McDougall, I have to confess that today I'm a little nervous because I'm going to do something that I've never done.
What is that?
And so
what is that?
Especially, I've never done, no, I shouldn't say that. I've never done in a live webinar.
Okay.
So just give me 3-4 seconds to walk away from the camera for a second.
All right.
And well, this is a surprise that I was planning for you, Dr. McDougall, for your birthday. I could only think of one gift that I could give you, and that is playing the piano for you. And as many of you know, I am a concert pianist. I have played thousands of times in a lot of places, but I have never played in a live webinar. So we will see how it comes out. If it's not good quality of sound, it will probably be better when you get the replay. Dr. McDougall, I know that you are a very passionate person. You say so in your book, The Start Solution, and I have personally seen the passion that you have to help people, the passion that you have for medicine, the passion that you have for spreading the message that saves lives, and for you've been doing this for over 40 years, and you're as passionate now as you were in your early years. And so I couldn't think of a better type of music to play today for you than something very passionate. And of course, tangos are very passionate music. And this is, of course, tangos are usually from Argentina. And that's my home country. And so today I would like to play one of the most famous tangos ever written. It's called La Comparsita. And this is especially for you, but of course for everybody else to enjoy. And so here we go. We'll see how it comes out. And happy birthday, Dr. Martin.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Watch it later. I hope everybody else saw whatever you did. What'd you do?
You're gonna have to see it on the replay, I guess. I played the piano for you.
Oh, thank you. No, I missed it. I missed the whole thing. It didn't come through to me.
Oh, I am so sorry. Well, okay, it will be on the replay, and you will.
I'll see it on the replay. Did anybody else in the chat group see the piano playing?
Yeah, they see that they saw it. I don't know why you didn't see it.
Well, I missed it. Thank you very much. I hope it was happy birthday you played. I was going to finish off with this adventure travel thing that I wanted to tell people about. Mary and I are not going back to Costa Rica, but we were thinking of taking the same ship we're taking to Alaska next month and taking it to Costa Rica and down through the Panama Canal. We've done that trip. Mary and I have done it a couple times before, and it's really an amazing trip. So if anybody has an interest, if you'd write to carol@drmcdougall.com and tell us whether you'd like to go on that trip or not. Give us some idea whether we should arrange for this ship. It's very expensive to charter the ship, and so we do need to have somebody come along with us.
Right.
And then we'll be going to Hawaii in January, the end of January, and we're also going to bring the three boys, Heather's kids, along. So if you want to bring some kids in January to Hawaii with us, to Kauai, that'd be pretty cool. All right, let's get down to subjects of the day. We have
so we have SIBO today.
Well, we have that, but I first want to mention there was an article on the internet today about Bill Clinton being back out stumping for Hillary, and he's having a hard time. Just like 8 years ago when he was having a hard time forgetting names and numbers and losing his kind of losing his cool, and he gave a presentation someplace in the Midwest yesterday. I forgot where it was, and people noted that he was having a difficult time with his energy and with his speech and so on. And I've told you all before. In fact, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago about the brain damage that people suffer when they go on the heart-lung machine, and this is a big part of it. And Bill Clinton's the same age I am, 69, and he's a smart guy, very articulate, but that kind of heart surgery really, when you go on that heart-lung machine, that bypass machine, that really takes a lot out of you. So that was disturbing for me to read in the paper this morning. And I've been, the other thing I want to get into before we get into SIBO is that there's a paper out of the British Medical Journal, it's right here, and this has made world headlines over the last 3 days. It's about potatoes. It's trying to tell you that potatoes cause high blood pressure. And I don't know how this kind of a PR takes place, but I have to believe the food industry is involved in it. This is a study of about 60,000 people from several other studies, from the professional follow-up study, from the nurses study. And what they did is they looked at food frequency questionnaires in relationship to the tendency to develop high blood pressure. And they found that potatoes, baked, boiled, or mashed, were associated with a higher blood pressure. It's kind of interesting. And this is the one quote I hope I read clear enough so you can understand. Participants who consumed 4 or more servings a week of any type of potatoes were, in general, less physically active and smoked more than participants whose consumption was less than 1 serving per week. So those people who ate more potatoes were less physically active and smoked more cigarettes. They're obviously unhealthier people. What's going on here? Well, how do people eat potatoes? French fries, potato chips, mashed potatoes with butter and cream. And, there may be the association, there is one. But it makes me mad that the publicity that comes out is that potatoes are bad for you. Potatoes are an ideal food. In 2008, the World Health Organization declared 2008 the year of the potato. I've got books. A couple of them came via AJ, but here's a book, Potato: A History of the Potato. That's just it talks about how potatoes. How potatoes have saved civilization. Let me see if I can get these other ones out of here. All right. Here's one that I just got. The Untold History of the Potato. Again, telling people about the phenomenal benefits of how potatoes have saved people from starvation, from societies from starvation, how they're totally complete in nutrition. They're high potassium, no cholesterol, low fat. Okay, I showed you that one. Here's another one of my potato books. It's How the Humble Spud Rescued the Western World. And this one, it's a book called 1493. Has a whole section on the potato and the importance of the potato in Europe. When the potato was introduced from South America to Europe, malnutrition virtually disappeared. The population of Ireland doubled in 40 years. This is such a complete food that you can live on potatoes and water alone. It's called the anti-scurvy vegetable. And there are people out there now. In fact, we had Andrew on a couple of weeks ago who ate the all potato diet. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I want to make sure I didn't miss any. I got the Humble Potato.
Those are such good books.
Oh yeah, this one, a new one that came out. It's a brand new one, and I haven't had a chance to read it, but it's called The Potato Hack.
Oh, wow!
It's a new one. It just talks about the wonderful things about potatoes, and then you get this garbage that hits worldwide headlines about how potatoes cause high blood pressure, and you see that those who ate most of the potatoes were smokers, physically inactive people. It's what they do is as the food industry, they take their spin doctors and they spin it into something that causes people to be sicker. You know, well, if I can't eat potatoes, what can I eat? Well, the only thing safe to eat is pork chops.
Mm-hmm.
And this is done over and over again. Wheat belly, grain brain, potatoes and high blood pressure. And the public doesn't stand a chance.
No, they don't.
But anybody who takes the trouble to learn about the potato, reads any of these books that I just showed you that I have on potatoes, or just does a little internet search, will see just how valuable the potato is. And there are hundreds of species of potatoes, and they grow from dry areas to wet areas, to high altitudes to low altitudes. They're really easy to grow. It's one of the few things I can grow in my garden. I grow kale and tomatoes and potatoes, and that's about as good a gardener as I am. But I really enjoy doing that. So don't fall prey to these food companies, these people who are putting out what they believe to be good research. And maybe it's good research, but it's not good for the public. The impact on the environment between beef and potatoes is about 100-fold. You can grow 17 times more calories on a piece of land when you use potatoes as opposed to grazing livestock. The potato has saved the world in the past, and it may be the food that saves the world in the future. It certainly was the food of the first Martian.
Right.
Yeah, man,
exactly.
Damon, he didn't grow cows. He didn't grow kale. He grew potatoes, lived on potatoes for a year, and we talked about that. Anyway,
Dr. McDougall, that study, though, that you just mentioned, it doesn't say how these people were eating the potatoes, with butter or with cheese.
No, but we
right?
know they were.
And it doesn't compare it to another. Does it compare it to another group of like?
No, it's just an observational study. It looked at the nurses study and the professional study, and it watched what happened to people over time. How likely they get to it wasn't a randomized controlled trial. They didn't really define potatoes in any specific form. They included French fries and mashed potatoes and potato chips and so on. But see, it's the headlines that are generated out of this that hurt people so badly. Yeah. And if there's one food that I was going to live on, you said, okay, all you can have is just one food. It would be, for me, it would be the white potato. The sweet potato would be fine too. If it wasn't for potatoes, you've heard me say this before, I probably wouldn't be alive today, because that's the one thing that my mother could cook. She could cook mashed potatoes, and she did use butter and milk in the mashed potatoes. But I would love the mashed potatoes. I would eat 2 or 3 plates full, and I'd take some she was not a great cook. I'd take some canned corn and canned peas and put it over the top, and she'd have a beef gravy. Well, we do the same thing now, except Mary doesn't put in the butter or the cream, and the gravy she makes is really, in fact, you had it last Friday night.
Yes, amazing, wonderful.
Yeah, we had 2 gravies, and we take some corn and peas, and that's one of our favorite meals. In fact, we had that at least twice last week. Yeah. So anyway, don't get confused, folks, by these national headlines that make no sense. They make no sense because they're not true. You know, the potato has been around as a dominant food for, you know, tens of thousands of years, particularly beginning in South America. All right. Well, we were going to talk about SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Let me give you the background on this. When I was a young doctor, when people felt poorly, they had stomach troubles, they were fatigued, they had aches and pains and so on, they'd go to the doctor, and the doctor would say, well, ma'am, usually ma'am, you know, it's the male-dominated medical business takes advantage of females. That's just the way it is. You know, it's just part of human nature. So the woman, and occasionally a man, they were diagnosed as being neurotic and put on tranquilizers, and that's how it was dealt with. And then later on, people would come when they got tired of giving that false diagnosis. Later on, what would happen is you'd go to the doctor, and the doctor would say, well, what you have is you have low blood sugar. That's your problem, is low blood sugar. And so you had a label for feeling terrible. You have low blood sugar. And then the next theory was, and some of you can remember this, is you have a yeast infection. You have candida. Yeah, you have candida. And that's why you feel so terrible. And now the new theory, I could probably add 2 or 3 more, and if I could think about it, when you go to the doctor with unexplainable aches and pains and constipation and you know, things the doctor can't explain, rather than the doctor saying, well, I don't know what's wrong with you, ma'am, or I never learned anything. And I'm sorry to be picking on the female gender, but it happens most of the time this way. I'm sorry, ma'am, they didn't teach me a thing about human nutrition in medical school. And I know you want a diagnosis, so I'll give you a diagnosis. You're neurotic, you got candida, you got low blood sugar, or now what you have is SIBO. And that's the new label for excuse for explaining to you why you're sick. Mm-hmm. SIBO results in people being put on low carb diets. It results in people being told not to eat potatoes and other kind of starches, carbohydrates. The theory being that starch, sugar, you know, that's what we're talking about, potatoes, rice, corn, and so on, they feed bacteria. And these bacteria then produce gas and toxins and so on, and as a result, you get sick from. And the way to solve the problem is to starve the bacteria by not eating carbohydrates. That is the theory. Well, the world is full of bacteria. There are friendly bacteria, and then there are pathogenic bacteria. The world's filled with bacteria, and the mouth is a very dirty place. I remember in medical school, one of the things we did in our bacteria class, I forget what we called it, but infectious disease classes. We take a swab, put it on a petri dish, and 3 days later went back to looked at it and saw all the colonies of bacteria. And the professor said, well, see, that's the dirtiest place on your body is your mouth. Well, we have all these bacteria in our mouth, and we swallow them, and they go into the stomach, and most of them are killed. Some live, like H. pylori lives. Some live, but most are killed by stomach acid. And then out of the stomach into the small intestine goes the remnants of the food with some bacteria. The idea is that these bacteria, they overgrow in people who eat a starch-based diet, a carbohydrate. Well, nobody eats a starch-based diet. They're eating junk food. But the bacteria overgrow, and the way you solve the problem is you starve them, take the carbohydrates away. Now, there really is something called a small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. I've seen it. It occurs when you do stomach operations for obesity. You have to take part of your intestine out, and you don't have the advantage of the stomach killing the bacteria. Say you take the stomach out. We used to do this all the time for ulcers. Then you get small bacteria overgrowth. If you have pouches called diverticuli in the stomach area or the small intestine area, you can get these pouches. They get infected with bacteria. So it's a condition that does occur, but it's extremely rare. I saw it when I was a young medical student, but I haven't run across it since then. Anyway, that was last month's newsletter that I wrote about, was about SIBO. Let's see what I said about it.
I do have, whenever you want, I have some questions for you.
All right, and that would be nice. There's something called the specific carbohydrate diet that's being used, which again is a low carbohydrate diet that restricts the healthy foods you should be eating. And there's a popular diet out there called FoodMap, which stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So there are a couple dietary plans out there, but what you need to do if you're having these kind of problems is you need to fix the food. The problem's the food. You need to be eating a starch-based diet, and then the things you're looking for to happen will go away. And you can find all this in my April 2016 newsletter. It's the new fad. You're neurotic, you got candida, you got low blood sugar, and now you got SIBO. Ladies and gentlemen, you're sick because you're eating the animal foods and the oils, and you're not eating the potatoes and rice and corn and fruits and vegetables. And I can prove it to you in less than 2 weeks. Just switch your diet. Okay.
Very good. So yeah, I'm sure people understand here that they eat all the starches, but without oil and butter and cheese and cream.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. As we've talked about before, Mary invented low-fat vegan cooking back in 1977. Before that, there was low-fat, which was skin chicken and skim milk, and there was vegan, which was made of plenty of oils and margarines and spreads and fake meats and fake cheeses. But Mary put together the first low-fat vegan menu plan. She did it because of me, because I was taking care of my patients, and I knew what they needed to eat. I knew what the poisons were. They were the animal foods and the oils, and I had nothing to feed them. And so I asked her, we worked together, but it was her genius in the kitchen that did it, to put together recipes for our patients. And we followed the same recipe plan. We started in 1977. So what's that, like 40 years ago? Mm-hmm. Nothing's changed. If you find an old book we published called Making the Change, you look at the recipes, or you'll find the McDougall Plan, which was sold over 500,000 copies. You'll go, these McDougalls, they're just so boring. They don't change. I mean, there are doctors out there like Mark Hyman that changes his philosophy every few months. Right. What's wrong with these McDougall people?
There's so much a surprise with them, those doctors. Dr. McDougall, how are these doctors diagnosing SIBO?
Okay, well, the way you're supposed to diagnose it is with sticking a tube down into the stomach and taking a sample of the small intestine. But the way they diagnosed it was they diagnosed it with a hydrogen breath test. And so they bacteria produce hydrogen, and so if you get more hydrogen when you exhale, they say, you have SIBO. It's a very inaccurate test, and that's why so many people are getting diagnosed with SIBO. To truly do it, you have to really do an invasive procedure and go into the small intestine. Right.
A person that I know this week just told me yesterday that they went to the doctor and they had them blow in I don't know if it was a machine or paper. I'm not sure, and I didn't know exactly what he was talking about, but now I realize it is that.
It's looking for the the amount of hydrogen, because that's what bacteria release. I got to mention a couple other things, because I know you get some good questions. The way they do it is they often will treat it with antibiotics.
Right.
To kill the bacteria, which, all they do is they just select out different bacteria. And another very common cause of SIBO are proton pump inhibitors. These antacids like Prilosec, Nexium, Pravicid, the things you can buy over the counter in the store, because what they do is they inhibit the production of acid. So when you eat all this bacteria, which should be killed by the acid in your stomach, it's not killed, and the bacteria do pass on into the small intestine. So that is a cause of overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine, is taking these antacids, which, by the way, are very dangerous. They increase your risk of osteoporosis, maybe stomach cancer. They give you SIBO. You should not be taking these except as a last-ditch, desperate effort. And of course, the first effort is to put good things in your stomach, so it'll stop hurting.
Right.
But
right. So basically, what you're saying, because a lot of people ask the same question about how to treat SIBO, is you're saying that follow the diet you recommend.
Yeah, you just follow the diet, and what happens is, you see, the bacteria that grow in your intestine, they grow there as a response to the food you put in the intestine for them to eat. If you put carbohydrate, which I just have to use the word sugar. If you put sugar in your stomach, and I'm not talking about white sugar, you know that. If you put sugars in the stomach, then coliforms, which are gram-negative, they're called gram-negative coliforms, which are the bacteria that are supposed to be in the large intestine and in the small intestine to some extent, a little bit, then they grow. If you eat meat, animal foods, you grow gram-positive bacteria, which produce cancer-causing substances that are involved in the cause of colon cancer. The bacteria that grow are dependent upon the food that you feed them. So if you eat good food, then what happens is the bad bacteria die off and the good bacteria survive. That's what it is. And they're investigating bacteria, people from different parts of the world. And one of the populations that's being bowel bacteria. This is a big topic, by the way. You can study for days on the microflora in the bowel and how important it is and how it's related to heart disease. And it is. I mean, we've talked about trimethylamine at one time or another. You've heard about it, how trimethylamine, which comes from carnitine, which comes from meat, how these trimethylamines are formed by bacteria in meat eaters. Trimethylamine is formed, it goes into the bowel, and then it's oxidized by the liver into TMAO, trimethylamine oxide. And then that is toxic to your blood vessels. And so this has been a huge topic in the New England Journal of Medicine and so on. When you are a meat eater, then that's what happens, is this trimethylamine, TMA, is produced. But if you're a vegan vegetarian, the body, even if you feed carnitine, even if you feed a hamburger to a vegetarian, when I'm talking vegetarian, I'm talking like we are vegetarians, not a cheese and egg vegetarian.
Right.
Then what happens is you don't have any bacteria to make this production of trimethylamine. The bacteria in your colon, when you're a meat eater, they release hydrogen sulfide, and you get all kinds of sulfites in your bowel that are very toxic because of the food you ate. You grow bacteria that release these sulfites, and they damage the colon, and they're believed to be at the root of the mechanism, the cause of diseases like colitis, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease. So the production of these pathogenic bacteria by eating the wrong kind of food is a real big deal, a real important part of this whole disease connection. But rather than getting confused about it, just take a step back to the kitchen and realize that if you eat good food, you're going to grow good bacteria in your intestine that won't really increase your risk of heart disease or bowel cancer, or all the things you're trying to avoid. It's the food. It's the food.
So is SIBO really a dietary disease, or are there any other factors?
Well, as I mentioned, you can get it if you have a pouch or diverticula in your intestinal tract. The bacteria will grow there. If you've had stomach surgery, stomach removed or rearranged to fight obesity.
Do you still recommend the same diet even then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But sometimes, like for example, I can remember as a young student, maybe when I was a surgical nurse, going in with people who actually had overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine. We'd have to go in and we'd have to cut the diverticuli out. So you didn't have that pouch for the bacteria to grow in there. I don't know any other way to treat it except put good food in. Stop taking these proton pump inhibitor and antacids. I don't know any other way you would treat it. And again, it gets down to this simpleton McDougall, who's just got this broken record. He keeps playing and playing over again. But if you look at the science, the data, the microflora, the chemical reactions that take place, it all, you can go on, and it does, to huge medical libraries filled with information about the different mechanisms involved in this. And you sometimes think it's overwhelming and not comprehensible, but it is. It's hard. I spent my whole life looking at this, and so have other researchers, and it all comes back to going back to the diet for human beings.
Right.
If I give you my example of my cat, I talk about Einstein all the time. My cat, if I fed my cat mashed potatoes, he would grow a flora in his intestine that would be incompatible with good health. He's supposed to have bacteria that feed on a meat diet because he's a carnivorous animal. So his gut bacteria would change if we put him on the wrong diet, just like your gut bacteria change when you get put on the wrong diet.
Right, right. Could you just briefly mention, a few people asked your thoughts about Candida and treatment and causes?
Well, I've seen Candida. I've seen it in people who are very debilitated, people with HIV, AIDS, who have their immune system, or other kinds of, there are other kinds of immunodeficiency diseases. I've seen it in people on cancer therapy, cancer chemotherapy, because you suppress their immune system, their whole body gets overwhelmed with yeast. Right. But as far as it being a diagnosis for general aches and pains and bloating and so on, it's just like the other baloney, that's the wrong word. I'd like to use the right word, but people get mad at me when I do. But it's like these other nonsense that, like you're neurotic and you got low blood sugar and so on. It's just an excuse given. It used to be one of those popular things, is you have an overgrowth of yeast. Now, let me add a couple of things to that. Women do get vaginal yeast infections. Occasionally, I don't know, I don't even want to go into this, but I think I've seen occasional yeast infections in children, but then again, it may have been in children who were treated with cancer chemotherapy. But even the vaginal yeast infections that women get, that's not normal. That's not, there's nothing wrong with that area of a woman's body. Right. But if she, and overweight people in particular, they get yeast infections in their groin, where the fat folds over, or under their breasts, where the fat folds over and you get moisture growing there. All right. So these yeast infections that occur are because of being unhealthy, and that's because of eating an unhealthy diet. Not only do you get these fat folds, but also when you eat an unhealthy diet, what happens is the blood sugar is generally too higher than it should be, and your immune system is suppressed by eating animal foods. So it, if you're having these kinds of problems, yeast in moist areas or yeast in the vaginal area, think about topical treatments. You can go to the drugstore and you can buy all kinds of antifungal creams, and that'll help. It won't solve the problem. You got to lose the fat so you don't have the folds of skin together. And you also have to have a good, healthy immune system and a normal blood sugar level to stop the recurrent vaginal yeast infections. Right. Right. So it does occur to some extent, but not this idea that the whole body's infected with Candida, and that's why you're sick. It's the same thing as saying you have SIBO, or you're neurotic, or low blood sugar, all the other nonsense diagnoses that have been given. You're sick because you're eating the wrong diet. You're sick because of the food.
Right. Does this have anything to do with the cooking vegetables or the elimination diet that you've mentioned before?
You'd have to explain.
Would someone that is suffering with SIBO, would they benefit if they eat cooked vegetables more than raw? Does that matter?
No, but the diet we teach is a cooked diet. Okay. The human diet is a diet of cooked food. Mm-hmm. It always has been. Right. You can't eat uncooked beans or rice, or potatoes are tough to eat uncooked. The human diet is a cooked diet. You can eat some raw food. It's okay. I don't think there's going to be any major change if you add more raw food. If you push it, you can lose weight faster. But no, it's fine.
So someone asks here a question, says, how can the potato be the anti-scurvy food when we have to cook them to eat them? I've always heard that vitamin C is lost during the cooking process. Is that true?
No.
Okay.
No, it may be lost a little bit, but not a lot. It is an anti-scurvy food, and people have never eaten potatoes raw unless they had no means to cook them. I mean,
right.
And potatoes, potatoes have been a food that has saved millions of people in South America. I got a letter just last week from a woman who wrote her biography of her dad, who just died at 90, and he was in World War II, and he was captured, I assume by the Germans. She may have said so in the letter, but he was captured, and he lived in a prisoner of war camp for 1.5 years. And she says, when I listened to your story about potatoes, and I wrote my dad's biography, he told me over and over again that all they had to eat was potatoes and a little bit of cabbage, and they had to go on a march of 250 miles in the winter with poor clothing. And these men lived on potatoes because that's all there was available. Post World War II, that's about all the Germans had was potatoes after the war.
Right, that is true. Do you ever recommend, a lot of people are asking if you recommend probiotics to grow good bacteria?
I don't think they do any harm. I probably not. But that gets me so I can finish the story. Back to people are studying the bowel bacteria of people who have good health, like in rural Africa. Studying the microflora, and they're actually taking fecal samples of people who live in rural Africa where they don't get multiple sclerosis or heart disease or colon cancer, and all the things that Dennis Burka taught me about back in 1971, which you can read in my January 2013 newsletter and see a video of Dennis Burka. Well, these people, like in Uganda and various parts of Africa, they have none of these diseases. They also have a completely different bowel bacteria than do Westerners.
Right.
So the idea is they're studying the bowel bacteria, and this is becoming a business. And although I haven't kept up on it, I have no doubt that there are, because I've read enough to know what's going on, that they're going to be making probiotic pills of fecal bacteria collected from people from rural Africa, so that you can eat, which is a good idea. I mean, to have these bacteria there, they're a really important bacteria, and then you got to feed them right to keep them there growing. Otherwise, they go away. So this will be a business that we will likely see pretty darn soon. You buy capsules of Uganda feces. How else can I say it? Yeah. And yeah. But I generally don't recommend probiotics. Likewise, I don't think they're of any harm. These are bowel bacteria that you buy.
Okay, all right. I know you have to go, but may I ask you one more question?
Yeah,
okay. Someone is saying, what if after having a sigmoidoscopy, they find blood in the stool? What do you do?
Well, you need further investigation.
Okay.
You need to investigate it further. So good.
Very good.
I do have to go. Mary's got something. She's got a very important plan for me.
All right.
I do want to remind you, we have a few rooms left for Kauai, and there are only oceanfront rooms left. We've sold out all of the lower rooms, but they're beautiful. It's a great trip. I think we have about 40, 50 people going now. But
not only that, but you also have a 10-day program coming up in June and another in August.
And that one's almost sold out too. And we have one in August. And we have the advanced study weekend. Right. And we had a great time seeing all these people last week at the intensive weekend. I just encourage you to join us, have some fun, touch the real people. Let us touch you. I can't tell you how much we enjoy hearing how well you're doing.
Well, it was great. I want to tell people how important it is to meet other people that have like-minded people, and also just the reinforcement that we all need every now and then. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to be spending the next 2 weeks writing the newsletter called Cardiologists Acting Criminally.
Wonderful. Yes.
And then we're almost finished with the new book, The Healthiest Diet on the Planet, that Harper One is coming through. That's what I'll be doing until the next program, which is June.
Very good. Oh,
so we'll be busy, but we look forward to getting together on Thursday mornings.
Very good, very good. I have a really fun video to show as you exit, showing how Mary prepares one of your most favorite foods.
And I will be looking at the famous pianist and world famous musician.
All right. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you next Thursday. And I'm going to show this video right now as an exit.
Okay. Next Thursday. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you, Dr. McDougall.
Thank you.
People say all the time to me that they'd rather die than give up their meat. And the sad thing is that's just what's happening. They're dying. They're dying as a result of overnutrition, as a result of getting too much fat, animal protein, and cholesterol. Now, you've probably heard that we need cholesterol, and we certainly do, but the human body is very efficient. It can manufacture all the cholesterol that we need for vitamin D, for sex hormones, but it has a limited ability to get rid of cholesterol. And when we take and eat cholesterol on our dinner plate, what happens is we overload the system and it can't get rid of it. As a result, it deposits it. It deposits it in our tissues, in our skin, in our tendons, and most troublesome in our arteries, and it rots the arteries, like the arteries to the heart, the arteries to the brain, and we get heart attacks and stroke. Now, I realize giving up meat is difficult. People tell me that all the time, and I used to be a very heavy meat eater. I remember my first vegetarian meal. It was 32 years ago. We got invited over to some friend's house for a vegetarian dinner. It was a grain dish. They had a Caesar salad and a pecan pie. And it was very tasty. I enjoyed it. But there was something missing. I didn't have that big lump of flesh, that chicken or that turkey or that beef in my stomach. And I was unsatisfied because it wasn't what I was used to. And so I could hardly wait to get home. I went into the kitchen, I opened the bottom drawer of the refrigerator, I pulled out that sliced turkey, and I made myself a Dagwood sandwich just so I could live till the next day. So that's where I came from. But I want to tell you, things change, and they change very rapidly. You'll find the kind of meal plan that I recommend very satisfying, and you won't miss that meat once you take the trouble to learn delicious foods that are based upon starches, vegetables, and fruits. And plus you get good health, and that's what it's really all about. Happy days, it's bean burrito time.
It's bean burrito day.
That's my favorite.
No, this is one recipe I don't even need a recipe for because I make it so often. My family absolutely loves bean burritos. And the best way to do it and the easiest is to get out your old slow cooker, called a crock pot sometimes, and this is how you make the beans. You start out with dried pinto beans.
You look for little rocks in them first?
Well, you do look for little rocks first. That's always a good idea because even though they say they're triple washed, sometimes you find a little stone in there and you don't want to bite into one of those. So you pour the beans into a dry, empty, slow cooker, add water, and depending on how many beans you use, see how much water you need. Usually I like to go about 2 inches above the beans with the water, just to make sure that they don't dry out when you're not watching them. Add 1 chopped onion, real simple. A few cloves of whole garlic, just peeled. Put the lid on, turn it on, and if you want to cook them overnight, you can cook them on low for about 12 to 14 hours. If you put them on in the morning, it'll take about 6 hours on high. Real simple. When you finish, this is what they look like. You didn't have to do anything except start them in the morning or the night before, and that's it. Now, we like our beans mashed a little bit, so you get your bean masher out.
You know, most people think of Mexican food and they think of carne and pollo and queso, but you know, our Mexican food is really delicious, and we leave those animal products out. We leave out the cholesterol, the fat, and it's a favorite around our house. And people ought to think also in terms of when they go out to a Mexican restaurant. You can get whole beans just like that in almost any Mexican restaurant in town, and you can add simple, healthy vegetable ingredients, just like we're doing here when you go out to eat. So carry this lesson for your eating out experience.
Now we like our tortillas softened just a little bit. So you put your griddle on the stove, turn the heat on to medium high. Take a tortilla, a nice whole wheat tortilla, throw it on the pan, and carefully flip it over a couple of times until it gets nice and soft. You can eliminate this step if you don't want to do it, but we like ours a little soft, and it's real easy to do. But you don't want to let them on there too long because then they tend to get kind of crispy. So you have to get it just right.
That little trick we learned from your father-in-law. Or my father-in-law, your dad.
Yeah, my dad. That's right, he did that for forever.
Yep.
Okay, and then after that, put the tortilla on a plate. Take some of these delicious beans and put them down the center of the tortilla.
I suppose you could also make a naked burrito out of that, couldn't you?
You could.
You know, those people...
You could just serve it over rice.
Right, you serve it over rice just on a
tortilla.
plate. You can skip the tortilla. How about a corn tortilla?
Corn tortilla would also work. I like corn tortillas. Add some toppings like tomatoes and some green onions. A little bit of lettuce. And we also like alfalfa sprouts on our burritos. We've been doing this for years. And our whole family puts a little alfalfa sprouts on top of their burritos. I know it's not really traditionally Mexican, but we like it. And then some salsa. Spice it up.
That's really where you determine what the burrito's all about, is the salsa you
What
put
kind
on.
of salsa you use.
Yeah, how hot you make it, Tabasco sauce, some of those really, really spicy Mexican sauces will change the whole flavor of that burrito.
And then roll it up. I guess I made it a little large.
Well, I like it a little large. And you know, I can eat 2 of these without even thinking about it. This is my favorite meal. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
And it also is great with leftovers, these things.
Yes,
We have
yes.
these, you know, lunchtime the next day, a couple days later for
Real
dinner.
easy to
Really,
reheat.
really
Real
simple.
easy to reheat.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Great burrito.